Tell me when to go. 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 Ghost ride the whip. Ghost ride the whip. Ghost ride the whip. Ghost ride the whip.
Yo, KingJvpes.
What's going on,
Bro, thank you for coming on to this video, man. Quick question, do people actually know your name, like your full government?
No.
No, not at all?
I think when people see me on the street, it's just KingJvpes, really. Yeah.
So should we like keep that off the record or should we like put that back on the video?
But we could put it in.
Oh yeah? Okay, so his name is John, just so like I could address that during the whole video because I feel like it'd be a little bit weird to call him King or Japes during the interview. How long have you been shooting street?
I started shooting street when I started shooting film. So like, started in 2016 and then...
Wow, 7 years now.
7 years now, just about.
Throughout those 7 years, actually, before we even like talk about that time span, how did you even get into street?
In 2016, I wanted to go out and make photos, but I didn't know of what. So naturally, I just gravitated towards the city. And the nearest biggest city to me was San Francisco. And then I just found myself in the streets making photos left and right. And then I didn't realize it was a genre of photography until a little bit later on. And that's when I really started to pick it up.
So about like what year did you realize that it was like a whole substantial genre of photography? And then you started studying the work of art?
I'd say 2017.
Okay.
2017, 2018, I went down like a rabbit hole with all like the black and white street photographers. And then, yeah, I think that was probably the start, really.
Okay, so like throughout those 7 years, right? Your style probably changed, your whole philosophy changed, but if you and I were to kind of meet for the first time today, how would you describe what you do?
That's a hard question, because like, you know, like what is street photography? Like what is it to you?
Like it's, oh man, you're bouncing the question back to me. I would say, what did I say before? I would say that street photography is a candid documentary of the human condition in not necessarily the context of a sidewalk or traditional street. Sure. I would say in any public ground, I would say.
Yeah, so like you, I think it's like social documentary, or maybe like Melissa O'Shaughnessy.
Oh yeah.
She describes it as a study of life. The study of life. I think that's a beautiful way to put it, right? Because like you said, it's not traditionally always have to be done on a sidewalk or like on the street, but you are capturing moments in life that are candid and like extracting that beauty through your camera. So I guess that's how I would explain it. I'd say like, you know, street photography is just a genre of photography that is done sometimes out on the street, but out in the public, and you're just capturing random moments in time.
That's a pretty elegant description of what you do to someone you meet for the first time. I would just stumble the entire time. Was there like a time where you thought like you got it locked down and then the genre kicked your ass and then you like had to rethink everything?
Like, what do you mean kick my ass? Like,
so what I mean is you had this high level of confidence at one point. Maybe, for example, you were on a hot streak of making really good work.
okay, yeah.
And then you see someone else's work from like the past and you realize, there's so much to learn. Did you ever have those moments?
Oh, absolutely. I have it all the time. I don't want to say like I've always been like super confident with my work. I know there's always like room to improve with some stuff, but there was a point in time where I feel like during the crosswalk series that I did, I got like one really good photo, to me at least, and that kind of gave me this false sense of confidence, because I was like, man, like I took that, you know? But really it was just a moment in time. I was just there to be lucky to capture that image. And then it wasn't until I was getting critique on that series where people were criticizing that most of my images just seemed like I was photographing random people and there was really no story, you know, it was just random things. And I realized that is somewhat true. And then that's when I started to rethink everything and like look back to the greats and see like how they would still do what I do, or I do what they do, you know, like capture random moments in time, but there was more to it rather than just a quick snapshot. And that kicked me in the ass, and that's still something I'm trying to figure out.
When it comes to your approach, is it more based on feeling or an objective?
I think it depends. If I'm learning something new or like I'm trying to practice something, it's for sure objective. Like when I was getting used to zone focusing, I always tried to go out and set like preset to 5 feet, for example, and make images for the entire roll at just 5 feet, just to see if like my distancing, like my range is, correct when I get the scan back. But I think for the most part though, if I'm like out here really just trying to make images just for fun or just for personal things, it's for sure feeling, because I don't know, I'm not really driven too much by preferences or standards. It's just like being out there and trying to make something with my camera for the most part. So for sure feeling. Yo, check out this Waymo, y'all. There's like nobody inside of the car. Sorry I had to wave to it. Okay, I'm gonna start with the most punishing part and then I'll head over into the rewarding. Punishing probably has to be just the amount of time, that you pour into something like this, because you're not gonna get good overnight. I find myself, I'm out here like 3 to 4 days a week just practicing, just making images left and right. And that's a lot of time to dedicate into something like this. But maybe rewarding would have to be the experiences, the places you go to, practice, the people that you meet, the other photographers that help you along your journey. That's probably the most rewarding part, because I feel like my life wasn't interesting until I started photography. Then after that, it seemed like, I felt like I was actually living. But yeah, that has to be the most rewarding part. Just being able to have new experiences, meet good people, and just consume and make art.
I know some people have like really strong preferences when it comes to bruising the scene or being more covert about it. I know that I really inject myself, and almost in a way where I have to make my presence warmed up to the crowd first, and then I start shooting more candidly. Okay. There was actually one comment on a previous video that I did with Faisal where we were talking about almost like this exact same topic, where I thought that my work was influenced a lot by Gilden, and Bruce Gilden is actually like a street photographer great that I look up to a lot. But through that conversation with Faisal, I kind of had that like sudden realization that like, even though he's my inspiration, my work doesn't exactly link to him. Okay. And there was someone in the comment section that also agreed with that, but expounded on it when they said Bruce Gilden's work seems more aggressive, but that commenter said that there's an element of invitation in my photos, and that's not like something that I purposely or consciously factor into my work. I kind of just say, hey, I'm here, and then like I start going away. So on that note, if Gilden's kind of my photography great that I look up to, are there inspirations for you, like the big figures that people know? Could be more than one.
Okay, I was just gonna ask you, could it be more than one? So my early influence was definitely Bresson, because when you get into the street photography rabbit hole and you look up the greats, he's always like one of the first to come up. Some people call him the godfather of street photography. So naturally I gravitated towards his work because that's all I knew for like the first 2 years. So within his work, I pulled a lot of inspiration from, he talked a lot about like geometry, and I think that taught me a lot about composition and like being intentional with a frame and how to almost paint a scene rather than go out and just snap. So I started to look elsewhere, and I found Gary Winogrand.
Oh, of course.
And Alex Webb.
Yeah, okay.
And those two right now are probably my biggest inspirations. Winogrand, I think I really love his approach to street photography. I may not be right, but it seems like he was just out and about.
Yeah, he's outside, yeah.
Yeah, he's a practitioner, and he just clocked in a ton of hours with his camera. And that's something that I admire about him. And then with Alex Webb, are you familiar with Alex Webb's work a little bit?
I'm actually not, which is kind of bad because he's one of the best out there, but go on.
Well, I asked because you have a couple of photos that I've seen that have very similar elements to
my photos.
Your photos. He, in my opinion, is probably one of the best when it comes to composing a frame in a way where you can have multiple subjects doing completely random things, but they all still mesh together in one frame, like in one storyline.
So you got Alex Webb's layering. You got Gary Winogrand's approach.
Something important to me is volume, which we kind of discussed before. Like you and I come from like an athletic sports background, and both being in basketball, we knew that sometimes it would be, or we would sit on the court, we wouldn't go home until we made 50 jump shots, right?
Exactly.
So it was kind of the same approach to our photography. I'm sure you can say the same thing, where we just want to be out there doing it as much as possible, because somewhere along the way we'll find, a new skill or we'll figure something out. It's
actually funny that you bring that up, that we both come from a basketball standpoint, because that's actually, it plays into your username, right? Like KingJvpes, that's like where it came from.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of history in our our practice today in our own art form that come from like an athletic standpoint, would you say that there's like other influences outside of photography or outside of street photography and then outside of photography as a whole that pour back into the pot? Because for me, right now, which is super weird, I didn't see this coming. Outside of street photography proper, I'm influenced by this photographer and this book called Voices by an artist named Jung-Jin Lee. I hope I'm not butchering that. But she is a landscape photographer, and this book, Voices, is all black and white landscapes. And I don't really look at landscape books anymore. Actually, for a long time, I haven't looked at landscapes. But something about her stuff seems metaphorical in a way. And what's really interesting from a technical aspect is that she darkroom printed all of her stuff and, you know, printed it all. And my buddy told me that Jung-Jin Lee and her team actually gets the paper emulsion that she does the print on. She lays down rice paper, then her team would just scrub the rice paper into the emulsion, which gives it this like grinded down texture, and then she prints the photo. So when you open up the book and see these landscape photos of like what a desert, a mountain, or a rock in the ocean, there's like this interesting texture where you kind of like tilt the book and you look at it from a different standpoint so that you can pinpoint what is different, what is like strange about the photo. So that's really cool that I want to start adding to my works, kind of step into the metaphorical. I don't really know what that means in street photography or in my work, for example. Like, how do you make something so literal, so metaphorical?
Okay, yeah.
Because my work is very literal. Yeah. And I can kind of like hypothesize ways to metaphorize like my work, but outside of that, I've said it many times on this channel, like music pours back into the creativity pot for me as well. So today we're in the North Beach area, and on a Saturday, sunny day, this place is the perfect place to shoot street because everybody's outside playing. There's a park 2 blocks away. That's beautiful. I used to have breakfast with my mom on that corner on any given Saturday. And to be back and witness all of this energy in San Francisco, which I haven't seen in a minute, is so awesome. I love it.
Live inside you. What your mouth don't say, baby, your thighs do. I want us to arrive together. I love it when the weather is wet and sticky.
It's gonna look so sick on black and white, yo. I love it when I'm photographing people and they're like, oh, I see him. Is he still photographing me? And then like when they look back, then I like snap it again.
Because of your innocence, even more you'll remember this hardcore gentleness. Before you wasn't into this, on the ride, your freak became limitless. Holding on to the night and me tight as we
it feels so good to be back. I used to, or I still kind of do have this preference where I really like to get up close to people and shoot wide. But there was this, what's his name now? He's also a photographer on YouTube. I think it's Ivan Chow. I think he's based in Canada or Hong Kong or Tokyo. He moves around a lot, something like that. But he made this video talking about the school of thought that closer is better. And that was a school of thought that I've subscribed to for a really long time. And his short explanation was bringing or creating distance from the subjects and from the space actually provides very valuable context and also allows the body of work to breathe at certain points. And for me, that resonated a lot because when I was talking to Faisal, I felt like my work was, I think I described it as a high RPM, like I felt full throttle, red line, there was just a lot going on, and it started to feel a little bit too hot. So taking a step back, or 10 steps back, and getting those contextual photos, letting my work breathe, I'm starting to see it in sequence. I'm like, wow, this is so much better, at least for me. Has anybody ever forced their preference on you, or tried to?
Oh, all the time, all the time.
Well, what are some examples?
Well, you know this as well, like in the YouTube space, everyone's throwing their opinions out, right?
Oh, of course.
So I think a lot of the preferences that were thrown on me were just suggestions on how I should approach my work, which I'm open to criticism, right? But I don't think everyone shoots the same.
Not at all.
You know? So specifically one that stuck with me because it kind of burned was, hey, like, you seem like a scared little,
Oh, sheesh.
like, you need to get closer, right? I kind of was able to separate like the criticism from just like it seemed like hate because it was so aggressive with the way they were saying it. You know, and I reflected back on that and I said, okay, maybe I could be a little bit closer. And I've always wanted to approach my photography like that as well, because like, look at the people that I look up to, like Wintergrand, right? Yeah, that was like something that for sure they kind of like put onto me, where I did take some like positive out of it.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of filter out those opinions, those suggestions, the advice, and sometimes the blatantly unnecessary comments.
Yeah.
So what does growth look like to you? Because you've been shooting more than double the length that I have. How have you been able to pick and choose what works for you from outside perspectives and kind of add it to your work, and even get rid of some things that you used to do?
The most recent one for me was just being able to switch from 35 to 28. Because within that realm, there's a whole new set of, maybe not rules, but things that you got to keep in mind in order to make good looking images, right? Sure. So one of them is like getting closer, obviously, and I knew I had to accept that. But two is like having to figure out how to get an intimate photo of somebody without making the background so distracting.
Okay.
You know, being so wide, it sometimes could be capturing too much of the scene.
True.
And that's like a struggle that I'm having right now, where I'm trying to figure out how to still have a clean image, like you not have like so much distracting things behind it. But what I have found was a lot of times you could use that chaos to your advantage, right?
Oh, for sure.
And make it tie in somehow.
Yeah, and that's really hard. The layering technique, because I'm still working on it, and I'm so young in the game that the growth that I have there has been a lot of external changes in the actual visuals, like from 2021 to now. It looks drastically different, but I feel like my philosophy changed a lot. Like there was a lot of internal change. I feel like it's a lifelong journey for myself. I'm still getting over the ratio, or the standard of the good ratio and bad ratio of one single roll of film. Like we all get like 36 to 39 shots, and I used to think that if I didn't get at least 10, I think I said 10 good photos in one roll, then that whole thing was trash. One good street session for me is I pump through 3 rolls and hopefully I get 20. That's my ratio standard now. I think a lot of people, or myself included, a lot of people have misunderstood that even the greats that we look up to, like those Magnum guys, when we look at the books that were curated from whoever or the galleries that they put up, sometimes, like for example, Joel Meyerowitz, I used to look at his work a lot. Like there are just some photos like in a book where it says this title 1982, and there's only 3 1982 photos. That's crazy that like an entire year of shooting in New York for as much volume that he's been putting, the curator or whoever picked it only picked 3 photos and like, oh, those are the only 3 good ones. That's rough. But I think that's also encouraging that there doesn't have to be this immense pressure to always produce gold every single time we click the shutter. Sometimes you have to shoot for the love of the game. Sometimes you shoot with focus, an objective, or a feeling, or whatever. But I think volume speaks a lot in someone's work, in their dedication to the craft. And yeah, like what we said almost in the beginning of this conversation, there's just so much good that can come out of just working at it every single day. Like that practical thing that we picked up from basketball, right?
You know, it's just practice, really. And if you get a good photo and it comes out nice, sometimes it's just extra. It's just like icing on the cake. You know what I mean?
Dude, I appreciate this conversation, bro. This was amazing, dude. Where can my audience find you?
You can find me on YouTube at KingJvpes, that's KingJvpes, and then same handle on Instagram.
Right on, man. All right, guys. See you in the next one. Peace.